And we are live. So, a warm welcome to each and everyone. Thank you so much for joining again here in our Wednesday webinars, the Let Us Talk It Zipinar. So, my name is Phil, and the company behind this initiative of giving back knowledge to everyone for free, which is for Let Us Talk It, is the Cogent Integrated Business Solutions. So, they're based in Detroit, Michigan. So, they're an IT company, and they do lots of IT services, staff augmentation, and they do startup acceleration as well. You can visit the website www.cogentibs.com and also www.letustalkit.com. So that's the websites that you can check. Then you can also look at the past webinars that we have here. So I'm very excited and very eager to introduce our two speakers today. But before that, let me have quick information about why we call it Zipinar instead of webinar. So Zipinar is like zipping a webinar. So we try to minimize the time consumed, but maximize the information that we share to you. So it's like a zipper. You put in two topics, the two guest speaker in just one session. All right. And we'll be bringing you very valuable and very great topic that we have today from our seasoned professional, uh, the like very very wonderful and such good speakers that we have invited over on LinkedIn. They're very responsive and very willing to share their wisdom and put on this free initiative for you today. So the first topic we have today is the business of games. So this will be shared to us or discussed by Mr. Tom Lassenberry, which is a senior level executive innovator, creatives, and strategy business development, and is a veteran leader in the interactive entertainment industry, known for his roles as former CEO of Hasbro Interactive, so Games.com, and Atari. Throughout his 30-year career, he's been instrumental in developing iconic brands like Monopoly, Star Wars, and Roller Coaster Tycoon. And Tom is celebrated for his strategic thinking and ability to create new business opportunities within organizations and expanding markets and driving innovation. He has partnered with major companies such as Disney, Microsoft, and Sony, continually pushing the boundaries of interactive entertainment. So, with pleasure, we introduce you, Mr. Tom Dussenberry, for the first topic today.
Well, thank you, Phil. I really appreciate that. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion today. The idea behind the business of games is that to talk a little bit about the explosive growth that we've seen in the marketplace over the last 30 or 40 years. And by way of background, in my career, I really had three different parts of my career. The first was I worked at Parker Brother Games, and that's where I had an opportunity to really work with some of the best brands in the world, such as Star Wars and Monopoly and Trivial Pursuit and Boggle and Risk and Clue and many other properties. And my story really with Parker Brother Games was the fact that I started out on the loading dock, and 22 years later, I ended up being the president of the company. So I think I have a good foundation from a point of view of understanding all the different elements of games and seeing how games have really become a big part of what the industry is today. And after I worked at Parker Brother Games, I had the Parker Brothers was purchased by Hasbro, and so I became part of the Hasbro family of companies. And my initial focus was on innovation and creativity, where we were going out and working with all the different inventors in the world and coming back with new game ideas and new ways to play games. And so that was a really robust period of time for me. And that led to the company asking me to lead the effort to introduce interactive entertainment to Hasbro. So the idea between Hasbro Interactive was the fact that what we were going to do was take the great brands from Hasbro and convert those to video games and to PC type games. And the strategy also was the fact that we were going to take some of these great licenses that Hasbro had, such as Star Wars, and bring them to the interactive world, but then go out and find new licenses such as Frogger to bring to the world as well. And then, as you mentioned earlier, we did go after original content, and fortunately, we had Roller Coaster Tycoon, which uniquely was the #1 PC game for 2 years in a row. So the company did quite well from a point of view of bringing new innovation and new products to the marketplace. And in addition to that, we had an acquisition strategy. And the strategy was to go out and buy other game companies that were compatible with the Hasbro strategy. So we bought like Avalon Hill, we bought Spectrum Holobyte, we bought Microprose, and most importantly, we acquired Atari, and we also acquired Wizards of the Coast for Hasbro. And I don't know if you know today, but Hasbro's two biggest brands are Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons, which came from Wizards of the Coast, and they're both now billion-dollar franchises. So the acquisition strategy for Hasbro Interactive worked as well as the new product strategy. In 2001, Hasbro, my company got so big it was creating issues from the Hasbro perspective as it relates to accounting and reporting, and they asked me to sell the company. So I successfully found an exit for myself and the company and sold Hasbro Interactive to Infogrames, which was a French company. And that gave me an opportunity to become an entrepreneur and to run my own company called Duesenberry Entertainment. And so for the last 20 years, I've really run Duesenberry Entertainment. And the primary focus initially was on building mobile games. So I created and I founded and I started 4 different mobile game companies that all rolled up ultimately to EA Mobile. And then for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been on the operating side where I actually moved to Charlotte and I worked with the NASCAR sport to create the NASCAR Heat franchise, which was across all the different hardware platforms from a game perspective. And that company ultimately went public. So that was a very successful company for us. And then I moved back into toys where I went and I worked with the STEM-based toy company Connect, which is a little construction company. And I worked with them to get the company into a position where we were able to sell them to Basic Fun and find a new home for that company. So that's just a real quick overview as it relates to what my career was over the last 30 years and how games and toys were always central to that. So today, we really want to speak about the business of games. And when you think about today's game market, it's amazing, but it's a $200 billion business. And to give you an idea about what that size is, if you take toys, you take books, and you take music, add all those industries together, and games is bigger than all those industries combined. So of the $200 billion that the game industry has, it really breaks down into 3 major categories. The first category is mobile games, and that's kind of like the biggest of them all, and it's about a $100 billion business right now. And amazingly, it's all based upon free to play. So it's got a very unique model from a point of view of generating $100 billion in revenues from a free to play perspective. But then in addition to that, there's the video game business, and that's rough and tough about $60 billion. And that's all driven by 3 major console companies. And then you've got the PC business, which is another like $40 billion. And each of those different categories are kind of unique from a point of view of what they deliver from a consumer experience from a games perspective. And that really then leads to the fact that when you look at game players today, amazingly, most people think that games are for kids, but games are for everybody, and everybody is playing games. The average age of a male playing games right now is 37 years old, and the average age of a female playing games right now is 44 years old. And if you look at really from a point of view of who the killer group is, from a point of view of massive use, it's really women 35 to 65 that love to go and play with their friends and play other types of games through interactive entertainment. So, it seems like it's a very robust business. It's for everybody at this stage. And so it's quite successful. And when you start to look at it from a point of view of how the games are delivered, it really comes down to these hardware companies that are really directly delivering the product to us. So from the mobile game perspective, it really comes down to 2 major delivery vehicles, and that's Apple and Google, which provides the bulk of how people are being able to get their games. But then when you get to the video game side, what happens is you've got Microsoft, you've got Sony, and you've got Nintendo. And then that converts, of course, to the PC side where, it's Lenovo and other PC makers as well as the Mac. And so you have all kinds of different options as it relates to hardware that you're able to get to be able to play what your games are. And so when we start to look at the different genres of where people are playing their games, it really comes down to the fact that they're doing a lot of shooter type games. And that's a very popular area because what it is, it's massively multiplayer, and you're able to join others to be able to enjoy those types of games. But there's also like role play strategy games that are deep and immersive in type of experience. And then there's like sports games like Madden or FIFA and popular games like that. And then, of course, you've got family games and you've got kids' games to be able to be played. And, interestingly enough, each of these different genres represent, billions of dollars in business and multiple different types of games. So you really have to start to, look at those games and you have to start to understand, what genre am I going after? And is it big and robust? And is there room for me to be able to bring my game and put that into there as well? So today, when you start to really look at games, Star Wars clearly continues to be a very popular game and has been popular forever. But then you also have games like Call of Duty, and Call of Duty is, just a mega type of a product that many people play, and each year there's a new iteration that comes out, and so people try to continue to do that. And amazingly, the biggest game of all is a PC game called League of Legends. And the reason that it's so big is it's truly global from a point of view that people are playing it across all the world, in particular China. People really love to play the game. And then, of course, you've got games like Madden and FIFA that are very popular from an individual perspective, but also there's team play. And that, because of that, what has happened is we've created a whole new genre in the game business called esports. And esports has gotten to be quite interesting from a point of view that it's competitive play. Generally, it's 4-on-4 teams that are playing against each other. But many of the major games have actually professional players that are playing the games right now. And you're able to go out and play in these competitions where you can make literally millions of dollars. And there are companies that actually go out and recruit different players to come and join their teams because the business is so robust. You're able to go out and play in different tournaments and you'll be able to get sponsors and you can get a great following. And so it's created a whole cottage industry from itself from a e-sport perspective. And amazingly, over the last 3 or 4 years, what we've seen is the major universities have all now come forward, and what they're doing is they're creating e-sport teams so that their universities can compete against other universities in e-sport type of competitions. So, here again, I just think the game business continues to grow and find new places to be able to find what its fans want and to be able to generate that from a perspective of creating new genres and new opportunities. So it's in today's world, what we find is that it's really hard to bring a new game to the marketplace. And the reason for that is that the games are so well established that the publishers don't want you to leave the game because the two key things in being able to derive a profitable business is one, acquisition of customers, getting as many as you possibly can, but equally important, if not important, is retention of the customer for an extended period of time. And that extended period of time now is lasting years from a gameplay perspective. So when you now start to break that down and you start to look at a product like Fortnite as an example, it's more than a game. It's really a complete format or platform where people can go in and they can play their Fortnite game, but they can play all kinds of other derivative Fortnite type products, such as from Disney or from Lego and from other major brands. But equally important is that once you get into the Fortnite robust platform, what happens is that they start to offer you other things such as music, and they will actually do live performances where they'll bring in a big group and be able to have a musical performance. They provide their news to you, so it becomes really a service from a point of view of the fact that you go into the Fortnite to play your games, but in addition to that, you see all your friends, you get all your news, there's music and there's entertainment and all those kind of activities as well, all feeding back to that idea of if we get a customer, we want to keep that customer for as long a period of time as we possibly can. And then in addition to that, in the platform area, we're beginning to see huge companies such as Roblox come out, and they're doing the same thing. And what they're doing is they're creating like a creator economy where you as a consumer can not only go in and play with your friends and have fun, but you can actually create games, play them with your friends, and if your friends start to play them, you can monetize those and start to make money from them. So the idea behind these mega platforms is something that is going to be more and more prevalent as we continue to go forward in the game industry. So in today's business, it's all about fun. And, you've got to deliver a repeatable fun experience that continues to keep the customers coming back over and over. And it's also an opportunity for you to look at the point of view that the game platform is an opportunity for you to extend your advertising and media to a very specific audience. So what you're seeing now is many advertisers are beginning to come into these game formats and being able to target specific customers that they're looking for and get their marketing messaging through. So it becomes very important from a point of view that, the publisher has to be able to have access, but you have to be able to deliver a secure, safe environment for your players. But you also want to feed them the type of content that they're looking for, which is really important at this perspective. So, we now look at, the game business as being a immersive, interactive type of experience for the consumers. So, what that really then comes down to is that, what is the industry from your perspective, or is there job opportunities? And, I look at the game industry as been something that is very rich and fertile from a game perspective, and, excuse me, from a job perspective. And so, whether you're an IT support person, whether you're a programmer, whether you're an artist, whether you're an animator, or even project managers, there are literally thousands of jobs in the game industry now for people to be able to go to. And luckily, they're very high paying, they're very, career focused type opportunities. So over the last 10 or 15 years, from a perspective of being able to go out and find a job, the game industry is a good place to be able to go out and do that. So, in summary, the game industry is huge, and it's going to get bigger and bigger as we continue to go forward. And as I mentioned earlier, the game industry right now is about a $200 billion industry, but there's a projection by 2030 that the game industry will grow to about $600 billion in sales. And the reason for that just massive growth is one thing, and that is streaming, the ability to stream content directly to the consumer. And so that's where the explosive growth is expected to come from. So what we're really looking for is that from a point of view of games, is that games are very diverse. There's something for everyone, and it's an opportunity for you to be able to go in and have a lot of fun, meet new friends, and to be able to show what your talents are as it relates to being able to play a game and compare your skills to other people as they play the game. So for me, when I start to look at different game opportunities, it always comes down to one thing, and that is it fun? And so to me, the game industry is all about one thing, and that is it's all about the fun.
That is true. So I totally agree, and that is about the fun. So yeah, I myself is a fan of Steam and Riot games. So yeah, I've been visiting those games once in a while, and with like I'm curious about how is the like idea of a game, like how is it like created from scratch, or how difficult is it to like when you first work to create a game, like how difficult and how long did it take to have the game established?
I do invent my own games, so I know a lot about that. And the first thing is that you have to have a kernel of an idea, and then you need to be able to play that game from a point of view of paper, basically, and that is to work out the details of what the rules are, understand what the experience is from the other point of view. And for me, what I always do is I always start out by writing a preliminary design doc. And what that is it's a great test from my own personal perspective, and that is, can I articulate a vision for my game good enough so I can give it to somebody else so that they can look at it and interpret it back? And to me, when I start to look at the games today, it's not only creating the experience of what the interaction is from point one to point two, but it's also the experience from a point of view of how the other consumers are going to be able to play. How do they fit into what that game experience is? And what can I do to be able to keep them for a long period of time? So in today's game, I can develop a game that can last 5 minutes and you'll say, oh, it's fun, but I never want to play it again. We won't make any money on that. You have to be able to develop a game that has enough repeat experience to it that people say, hey, I'd like to come back and play it again, and then play it over and over. And the way you get to that goes back to the game design, and that is that you have to have fundamental principles that are easy to build on and to be able to stack. So whether it's content, whether it's design experience, whether it's other types of changes in the gameplay, all of those things lead up to what the fun experience is. And once you get all that taken care of, then you have to really think about, and it's got to be incorporated into the original design experience, and that is, how do I make money? And so in today's world, basically it's free to play. So advertising is critical. So you need to be able to have your timely breaks in the game to be able to put the ads in so that, we can get paid, or you need to be able to come up with a subscription model that is effective and is worth the consumer to be able to say, hey, I'll pay $4.99 or $1.99 or whatever it is to be able to commit to this game to be able to play it for an extended period of time.
I see. That's interesting. So that's why yeah, some mobile games, they have their advertisements inside. Like, yeah, they have some few catch for you to buy some additional credits and all those. So aside from that, like, did you when this when you started your career, Tom, like, did you really start in the games industry, or like were you in a different field?
Well, I was a boy that loved to play games, so I was playing poker and I was playing Risk and I was playing Monopoly and the games that were popular at the time. Uh, but I will say that when I got out of high school, all my friends went off to college, and I wasn't really able to go to college, and so I was able to find a job at Parker Brother Games on the loading dock. And that was really something great from my point of view because it was in the game industry. And it was an interesting time for the games industry because all of a sudden we were doing plastics and there was electronics and there was Atari and those types of things. So it was a period of time that was explosive growth. And for me, when I went in, I found out that I had an aptitude to work. And I really enjoy to work. I really like to see other people succeed as well. And in the process of doing that, even though I started on the loading dock, I worked hard and I was recognized for that. And so I went, step by step of being able to go through the process. And after 3 years, I got this big opportunity to move from Des Moines, Iowa, out to the East Coast to Salem, Massachusetts, where the headquarters was. And once I got there, it was like, wow, this is unbelievable. There's really bright people that are just playing games all the time and building games. And I just continued to work hard and continued to do my job as good as I could. But I was also very strategic. And that is that at Parker Brothers at the time, when I first was hired by the company, it was a family run company. And then it was sold to General Mills. And then it was sold to another company and then another company and then ultimately got to Hasbro. And I found that whenever we were going through that uncertainty, most of the other employees were saying, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job, or what's going to happen to me next. And what I did was I put my nose down and worked as hard as I could. And I reinvented myself each time a new owner would come in. And that gave me an opportunity to go from like manufacturing to sales, and then from sales to marketing, and then marketing to product development, because it was a fresh start from the owner's perspective. And I definitely capitalized on that to take advantage.
Wow, that was really inspiring. I can imagine the actual feeling of that kind of success, definitely. And were there any like misconceptions about your area of expertise?
I think my expertise proved to be innovation, creativity, and developing new markets. And I think it took me 20 years of experience to get to the point that I knew all the fundamentals, to the point that once I got into it, a creative, innovative type of a market, I knew what to do with it and knew how to get it into the organization and to be able to make it successful. So, yes, my expertise really falls down into that creativity, innovation, and marketing point of view.
Mhm, I see. That's really fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that one, for sharing your knowledge, and yeah, like, you're talking really from your personal experience, and we really appreciate that. Yeah, willingly brought that wasn't his brought that knowledge that you have here in our platform. Frida, do you have any? Would you like to ask questions or?
Oh, that was just so awesome. I'm glad to be connected. We'll definitely have to talk after, Tom. Uh, let's see. No, actually, I don't think that I do. I'm just so I'm sponging everything in that whole story was super cool. Just working your way up from the docs as well. That is really inspiring. Some of the smartest people I've worked with have not graduated college or even gone to college. So it's really good to know, especially in a trade industry like mine.
Hmm. Well, thank you. As it turned out, when I joined Hasbro, they gave me the opportunity to go to Columbia University and get my executive MBA in finance. And so I do actually have an education, but it took me, to 20 years to the point that I got to that. And I value education. I think it's really important. And but I also think that there's a work ethic that needs to be conveyed as well. So yes.
Awesome. I thought I saw that. I was wondering how that occurred. If you somehow skipped college,
Yeah. Well, it
That's
was kind of a weird thing because everybody wants you to go to college, so we were always telling me go to college, and go to night school and do that. And so I was doing those things, but it just really wasn't fulfilling from a point of view that if you go to night school and you try to take those classes, things were so fast that we're moving in the business. It was hard to slow down and do the college type stuff. But
yeah.
then I found that if I continued to work hard and I continued to do really well, my specialty and my expertise kind of trumped what the education part was. And so that's where the organization started to look at all those things. But then for me as an individual, I wanted to be a completed type of person, and I felt that an education would be really important. So I valued that, and my company, and luckily my boss valued that as well, and gave me the opportunity as I was working full time to be able to actually get a executive MBA as well.
Yeah, we're aligned there, especially in my field where there's a lot of certification requirements. Like there's a difference between being able to take tests, versus having the experience. I really just want to play your games. I've been really into games that, I mean, I've always have been, especially Nintendo. But particularly the last few years, I've seen some awesome games come out. I mean, I'm a woman, obviously, but I know that we're into kind of more calming games too. Like there's more and more of those games that I've been seeing. So Stardew Valley, for instance, is a really interesting one where it's just a pixel game. But yeah, let me know what games that you've made or are working on because I want to play them.
Yeah, the what I find interesting is what goes around comes around from a game point of view, and for interactive entertainment, it's all contained within the digitization of things, right? But what's emerging as a new game area is browser-based games that have questions but don't give you specific answers from a digital point of view. And if you think back to 20, 30, 40 years ago when you were playing Trivial Pursuit, it was kind of the same thing, right? Or whatever game you were playing is that you would be having all this interaction. It would be all live type interaction. And then there'd be decisions on whether you had the right answer or not. And what I find, that was like taboo for years from a game point of view. And now all of a sudden it's coming around first full circle where if you're like in the living room and you're wanting to play with others, you can get out a game. Everybody's got their mobile device and all of a sudden the action starts to explode because of all the fun and all the interaction.
Right, and the remote play as well, right? Yeah, I've played
Right.
the like Jackbox games where
Yeah.
it's
Everybody can be included.
yeah, yeah, it's great. We love games.
All right, I too. And yeah, well, thank you for that, Frida. We have here Hari Priya wanting to know AI is very rampant these days. So what are your thoughts on leveraging AI to enhance gameplay?
AI is huge and going to become even bigger from a point of view of all kinds of different types of gameplay, and even generative AI from a perspective of being able to go into software of a game and then be able to give individual player feedback will be central to being able to heighten the experience ultimately. And so that's just one example. Another example of AI is that because of the fact that it can generate accurate content very quickly, it seems to me like there's going to be a lot of new word game type games that'll be out there because of the fact that AI will be able to generate such a robust experience right off the bat.
Wow, that's really interesting. I hope that takes care of the question. Hari Priya, thank you so much, and yeah, for bringing that one up. So yeah, the duration has been definitely consumed. The topic is really interesting. So yeah, hoping we can get another session definitely in the future. This is one really unique. Like you cannot encounter such an individual with who works in that field. The games industry. So well, thank you so much, Sir Tom, for those contributions you have with the games. Like I played some of them, and yeah, games are really enjoyable. So you forget the other things when you play games. And yeah, anything else you'd like to promote before we move to the second topic?
Well, I run Dusenberry Entertainment. You can go to www.dusenberryentertainment.com to find if you want to contact me. And I'm highly focused I stay in my lane, which is games, but I'm very focused. As you can tell, I've got a lot of experience in that. And I do a lot of creative work. I do a lot of consulting work. I do a lot of advisory work and a lot of like board work with different companies.
Alrighty, there you go. And yeah, make sure to search Tom Doesn't on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with him, do private message with questions you have in mind. If you have missed this webinar, you can send the questions to him. He's very approachable and very responsive. And you can watch this session that we have with him right now on YouTube as well. So you just search "Let Us Talk It" on YouTube, and definitely you'll get to see this wonderful session. Alrighty. Okay, well, thank you so much, Tom, for the first topic that you have brought
Thank
today. It's
you.
really wonderful. And yeah, we'll be moving to the second topic that we have today. Okay, so the second topic is creating a cybersecurity roadmap for organizational growth. So this this topic will talk about the experience in cybersecurity and will allow us to share strategies, or our speaker will share the strategies for building a robust cybersecurity framework that aligns with business goals. And also, we will delve into areas like SOC2, compliance, vulnerability assessments, and reducing security breaches, offering valuable lessons from your work from the work, which is our speaker today is from iFIT and Unilever. And our speaker today is Frida Kreitzer, experienced IT leader as a SaaS management expert, and over a decade of expertise in IT operation and SaaS management, and had a journey into technology. Started with the background in philosophy and has since held key roles at companies like Meta and Unilever, where she led transformative projects that streamlined IT processes, enhanced security frameworks, and optimized SaaS portfolios. And known for her ability to build scalable IT infrastructures and create long term strategic solutions. And Frida is also passionate about aligning technology with business goals. And today, let me introduce to you Frida, and you can now take over.
Hello, thank you for that awesome introduction. Yeah, Tom's the gaming industry is one of the few industries I have not worked in. And it's so complex when it comes to the topic I'm going to speak on today. So I'm actually really interested in his opinions and everyone's opinions. All right, I'm going to try and share my screen. I work in IT, so that's why I say try. You never know. You never know how it's going to go.
Hmm.
Okay. Hello. So today I want to discuss with you how to build a secure organization. And I'm going to apply this to any organization. And this also will apply to you personally. So how do we build a roadmap to success in order to lead a company toward good compliance practices? And I'm going to break down what that means. First of all, I had the best introduction ever, but I'll go ahead and say a little bit more. So I'm Frida Kreitzer. The more you get into my name, the more German it gets. So it's a little difficult. My cats were trying to be compliance cats and help with the presentation. They escaped. They're now retained, but we'll see what happens. I'm trying to be secure with these cats, but what I'm speaking about today, the three things that I do are usually people aren't super excited to hear it. They're not like, ah, yes, I can't wait to work with IT, or I can't wait to work with security. I can't wait to be compliant, right? And that's why you see all of these breaches today. And that's why we have the privacy concerns that we do. That is why you get robocalls. It's why you see that, your social security number has been sold on the dark web. You get emails that you shouldn't, things sent to your address. These are all bits of information that are worth money to scammers. Right, it's called PII, personal identifiable information. So my passion in my career, I started out in IT a decade ago now, has been really focusing on IT security because we're the front line for social engineering and security attacks, right? So it's usually an IT person who's been socially engineered, and therefore that hacker has gained access to accounts. You hear hacking and think it's some like fancy thing like in the movies, someone in a black hood typing, vigorously on a keyboard in ways that make like zero sense, but super fun. That's usually never the case. It's usually always social engineering. And I'll go into that, of course, in this presentation and what that means a little bit, but let's get into it. So what is SOC 2 and why am I focusing on SOC 2 in particular? So SOC 2 is a compliance framework that ensures that organizations are doing best security practices with their data. So it ensures that third-party services, so any piece of SaaS software, anything in the cloud, anything that you use or log into should be protecting your data, ideally, right? Is this the case? No. And that's why I've become very passionate about this, is I genuinely do not believe privacy is dead, or it shouldn't be. So how can we help companies to ensure that that's, not the case? So the example I would love to use with that actually is 23andMe. So 23andMe, you've probably heard of, they collect genetic information, and you can create an account and they'll send you a kit, get a blood sample, and then tell you a ton of health information about you and many other pieces of information. It's very interesting. However, they were breached. They they ended up blaming us, like you and I as a customer, right? If you were to have a 23andMe account, they essentially said that because we're reusing passwords, which is a common thing, which is why you hear IT and security people harp on that. Like, okay, you should use a unique password for every single application, which is a topic I can get into later on how to do that. But they said because we were using the same password and not using MFA, which is multi-factor authentication or two-factor, it's, Touch ID, it's getting a text message verification, it's Face ID, email. That was why we were breached, was because it was very easy for someone to just access your account. Well, should that be on you and I? I say no. I think that it's very good for us to have solid security practices, and that's something that I'm very passionate about, is helping the general public with that, because it gets increasingly more difficult. And I know I'll get a question about AI later on, and I'll be happy to talk about that. But no, it should be on the company and software to bake security into their product. So it means that they should be encrypting passwords when they store our passwords in their database. They're assuming that we're being responsible for our data, which we try to be, but we should not only be assuming that they're responsible for our data, but they should be, right? So I'm here to help ensure that. And obviously, this is a very large topic, and I don't have too much time to talk about it today, and I want to get questions. So I'm going to move along, but I'm going to briefly go over a plan that I've implemented at various startups, mid-sized businesses, and very large businesses to help achieve this, right? Help make sure that your data is actually protected. Because think about the amount of data that you put into these websites, right? Especially a shopping website. It's your credit card information. And some websites ask for your social security number. And those are not well protected. So especially in today's landscape, and this has always been the case with IT and security, it's incredibly fast moving, right? Especially now with AI, it's very interesting to even predict the future, even very near future of how everything I'm talking to you about will change, because it will. So how do you keep up with a landscape that's continuously changing, right? How do you find stability in that or have some kind of foundation to build off to have something stable over time? Well, we work with people, right? I work in IT, and there's a common misconception that my job is solely technical, and it's not. My job is actually working with people and helping them with technology. People are not consistent nor stable in themselves, right? So the reason you see a lot of these issues at organizations is because people have specific preferences, to a UI, to certain softwares they want to use. So companies have just allowed them to use everything. And then there's what's called a massive SaaS sprawl and tech debt, which is always millions and millions of dollars from what I've seen, because SaaS software is very expensive, even at smaller companies. So because you're working with both people and technology and you need, consistency, you want to have actual policy and, written documentation. So you're defining everything that you're doing. You're going to have a plan for implementation, and you're actually going to follow it through. I majored in philosophy, and I got into IT because I wanted to take those abstract logic concepts and apply them to the real world and actually help people. And this is where I'm seeing, a lot of people think the degree is not relevant to IT, and I'm seeing it become more and more relevant, especially with AI ethics, right? But where it's been important in my career is asking the why behind things. I'm not just coming in to tell you to be compliant, right? And I can fearmonger all day and say, like, okay, as a company, if you are attacked in the future, it's going to be extremely costly, right? So we need to do this proactive protection for you to ensure that this doesn't occur. That's very difficult to argue to leadership. Think about, and this example is very intense, but I can't stop thinking about it. So think about the billionaires on the submarine, right? Was that a good plan? No. The more details that came out about that, the more you wonder how that could even have occurred. And I can tell you how it did. There was a director of engineering who was asked, well, I don't think he was asked, probably, but he did a survey of safety of the submarine and said, you know what, that's not safe for several reasons, and you should not go on this journey. And, they definitely went on the journey anyways. They went ahead and fired him, and I believe, attempted to sue him as well, right? Because if you're going to dig in and go with your ego on something, you really got to dig in hard. So you have to be so gentle and so careful and and aware of your communication when it comes to helping people with this at companies. So for instance, if someone's very used to using Microsoft and they love Outlook, and you're telling them they have to move to Gmail, that's not, they're usually not like, okay, like no problem, change management is challenging. And I'm, a decade into my career, and I have so much to learn with communication still, and how to ensure that everyone's on the same page. We know why we're doing what we're doing, and we know that it's a good thing, because it's a lot of work. It's easier to just do this like wild, wild west situation and continue to be a startup, but we want to mature. And that really does involve building good habits, which is difficult, right? I can attest personally that trying to build new habits and good habits as a person is challenging. So in a company environment with technology, what is the why behind what we're doing? Because again, I care that systems are secured, and I know that hopefully you care about your data being secured, although there's a lot of people I talk to who have this nihilist point of view where it's like, well, all my information's out there anyways. What does it matter? Um, and I'm happy to go into that actually if I have time. I don't think I do. I think I should leave time for questions. But the why is for companies, you have to argue from a financial perspective, fortunately or unfortunately, right? This is the way of capitalism. If you want customers, you're going to have to learn to be compliant. So if you are a reputable company, right, who wants to take on a product or, either use the product or acquire the product, that product needs to meet your compliance standards. So if you're saying as a company like, hey, I care about your data and we do have it secured, in the back end and we know what we're doing here, and then they work with a product, like for instance, a product that takes your payment information, for instance, and that product doesn't have the compliance standards they do, that could completely kill their reputation. Not only the reputation of that company, but also the company who makes that product, right? And that's the actual why, is like you are not going to come back. Like your name is not going to be salvaged now that you've destroyed everyone's trust, or it shouldn't be, right? And do I see a lot of people signing up for 23andMe? No. Did I see the entire board resign like the other day? Yeah. Like, so it's not great. Okay, so I'm gonna finish up here. I already talked about this because I got carried away, but in more detail, it gets very complex to have each team in an organization learn how to secure their product and have good practices, right? So I'm there to help with those controls. You don't just say as a company, oh yeah, we rotate our passwords. What's the quantitative measurement there, right? You say, okay, we rotate our passwords once a year, or we rotate our passwords every 3 months. It's a test that you get to create and then take as a company. But, you need to adhere to it. So I've led a lot of IT support teams who help with the education and frontline support. But I think that IT these days, at least the way that I've done it, has become more high level than people think. Technology is the underlying factor in almost every single company, runs off some kind of technology. So it's really important to know how to secure that hardware and teach people good practices in working with it, especially with AI and how things are moving. So with that, I'm going to finish up so we have time for questions. But yes, we love trust. That's the takeaway. Trust and transparency are fabulous, and ideals that I always seek to maintain and uphold. So thank you so much.
Wow. Okay. Well, so some of the parts is not it's not in my line of work actually, but yeah, it's I'm really trying my best to generate some few questions, but I just want to know like what inspired you to pursue this line of like work or expertise?
Well, I majored in philosophy, specifically in philosophy of mind, and I got very interested in logic. Uh, learning logic was actually very difficult for a few reasons, but it's an actual mathematical practice, right? So it's math with words. You have a premise, and then statements, that support that, and then a conclusion. And it means something very specific when you say that an argument is valid or not. Valid means true premises and true statements and true conclusion. So applying that to the real world, as you can imagine, is very painful. You don't see that very often, especially in politics. There's something suspicious between the middle or not a true premises to begin with. So I got very interested in computers, and I know programmers and developers will, attest to this, that it's logic based, right? So programming, it's all different types of logic. I didn't end up going into software engineering specifically. I really wanted to do IT because I just wanted to help people with some, what I find as someone who's technical, very difficult, practices and knowledge to, secure themselves. So I just became very passionate about that. And I saw a few things. There's an odd rivalry between IT and security when there shouldn't be. I do IT security, which is supposed to be this, bridge between the two. And I've led security investigations. I've done penetration tests. I've helped security teams. And I saw with IT that it could bridge the gap between many organizations. Like, I think I've recently thought about like that IT is like the capybara of the corporate world. Like we should be helping and be friends with each org and like make their lives easier. So that was kind of a large answer, but yes, I want to make people's lives easier, especially with where technology is heading. It's incredibly complex.
Definitely. All right. That's a good inspiration, definitely. And like in the medical field, as you have shared earlier, right? So there's really like a very very complicated or really important informations on their websites or their like that they store.
Yeah.
So with those, like how fast, like when the breach happened, how fast does the action really take? Or do they shut down the application? Yeah.
That's a great question. So it depends on what the breach is, right? So if it's a ransomware attack, it can take a really long time for the company to realize that they've been attacked. And by the time they realize that, it's too late, meaning whatever malware has been installed has taken all the data already,
Okay.
So it's really sad. Like it makes me really upset actually when health industries are targeted, because they are targeted a lot.
Yeah.
And to your question, yes, there have been instances where they shut down systems and power. And as you can imagine, and like, they do it for money or some kind of ransom, uh, people die. Yeah, so it's very terrible. And that's another reason, like on a very serious note, why I'm so passionate about this too, is trying to help organizations like that. So health is infamous for having poorly secured applications. So is finance. So these are like very important industries. These are both industries with the most sensitive information. You don't want that to happen, right? 23andMe is a health organization, technically. One reason that that is so frightening is that that data is now out there, which means that if insurance companies get a hold of it, they could deny you for insurance due to knowing that you have a potential pre-existing condition.
Yes.
So is that legal? No, but is it done? Absolutely. The way the internet is run is like crazy. I could do a whole other presentation just on that, but it's very dark. And Yeah, that's one reason why I'm so passionate about teaching people about social engineering, especially in health industry, where everything is very urgent for the most part, or actually is an emergency, which is how scammers and phishers, people who try to social engineer will get you and gain access to the company and do such damage. Is because they instill this like, I need this now, right? Um, and especially if you're a nice, helpful person and you're not aware that you're completely being played, especially I've seen some like crazy scams, like text scams come out. Um, it's a challenge. Yeah, and it's not cool. Yeah, it's not okay.
I see, I see. So, with this, as you mentioned, the ransomware, like, is it like really a high profile detection kind of program, or like it should be like occasional checking of all the data if it's being infected, something like that?
It's a great question. So, especially with AI, right? And the way that the dark web works, there's so many presentations I want to do suddenly now. That would be great to talk about too. There's more and more software coming out to combat malware, like where it's created, which is essentially the dark web. So scanning that before it enters your system.
Mhm.
I can't even explain this very well because these are very new pieces of antivirus and anti-malware software because you're like pre-scanning, right? Um, Most companies can't afford that. Even CrowdStrike, right, which was a piece of software that I used to be like, yeah, CrowdStrike's
Yeah,
cool because it's AI. Like they had the largest technical failure in the world. Like they brought down every single Windows system.
everything.
Yeah, catastrophic. So, which is the opposite of what it's supposed to be doing, right? So it is usually a reactive situation, always, like 90% of the time. It's like, oh shoot, this virus detection program has detected what looks like malware, and it's escalated to me where I have to investigate, hey, is this actually malware or not? And if the malware is, if the file is called malware fun 555, it's usually a good indication that, it probably is. They have like ridiculous names, but you look them up. The Microsoft has a CVE. So if you're using Defender, Microsoft Defender, you can look up like, hey, is this real or is this a red flag? Because there's a lot of red flags in Defender, and you'll want a different piece of software to investigate it further. There's a lot of pieces of software that do that. So like Sentinel-1 and Sophos. Other antivirus, even better ones that have come out. But it's a process and it's difficult because that investigation does take time. And if it is potentially malware, and if the companies doesn't have good protocols for how to deal with this, I've been at companies where I've had to stop engineering production until I can resolve this issue and make sure it's not malware. And I can't tell you how expensive that is. That's a lot of money, even for a day, right? When you're on a deadline to deliver something for the shareholders, you know.
I see. Wow, that's really tricky, but yeah, it's really fascinating to hear more of that of this topic, definitely. So yeah, maybe let's look forward in the future for like a different session again. So yeah, well, we have consumed the actual time, but yeah, I'm still trying to think of some new things that I wanted to ask, but yeah, maybe in the next time. And this is really a great session. So thank you so much for passionately sharing your passion in terms of your expertise. That's what we are here in Let Us Talk at Zipinar. So we just not share the information alone. We share the actual value of knowledge, which is from the perspective of seasoned professionals like what we have today and their experiences as well. And yeah, applying their best practices. So, and before we end, well, Tom, do you have some additional inputs or questions?
Yeah, Frida, great job. First of all, it was very informative. Thank you. What's the difference between mobile and PC from a security perspective?
Oh, great question. Uh, you know, actually quite a bit. Uh, PCs are the easiest pieces of hardware to put under MDM. So it's mobile device management. So that just simply means if your computer gets lost or stolen, I have the ability as IT to lock it down or erase it. Macs get a little more complex. There's really only one piece of software that has a deal with Apple to secure their hardware, and Apple is very intense about security, so that's great when it works. Mobile devices are actually very difficult to secure. It's a debate that I have at every single company where they're like, oh, we want everyone to have business phones, or you can use your personal device, but you need to have a certification on it. So therefore we can lock down and erase your phone. Well, as you can imagine, that's really invasive into someone's privacy. Like I wouldn't like that. That's my personal device. You would be erasing my personal information if not done correctly. So it gets much more complex. I've gotten to the point where I'll use a very light MDM, no cert, nothing, where I just pull the device's information. So meaning what kind of phone it is, how much room there is on it. Uh, and I don't, unfortunately, I can't even check if there's malware, because it would take more intensive program. But yeah, that's the most complex area of hardware management for sure, and software management is mobile devices, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So before we actually close, do you have anything you'd like to promote? Are you working on something right now, or you have online events going forward?
Yes. So I used to do talks with NordVPN and Nord Security. We had a series called Cyberview, and I definitely recommend checking that out. We have a podcast on Spotify and on YouTube where we try to break down AI topics for the general public. I myself have my website, itfrida.com or fridait.com. I did both because I couldn't decide. And I do any kind of IT consulting. So really anything you need in the realm of IT or security. I started out in web design and photography. So if you need that too, very happy to help you as an individual or your business. So yeah, reach out to me. I would love to work with you.
All right, that's fantastic. Okay, so you can search also. Just type in like the exact name that reflects there. Frida. How do you pronounce it again? Let's see. Kritzer. So
Oh, Kreitzer.
KREITZER. So you type it on your link in the search bars. Also for Tom Dussenberry. So such great speakers that we have today. Uh, would love to hear further from them definitely, but our time is constrained. We'll let us socket team will try to reschedule a different session in the future according to their availability, but definitely connect with them. Send them a message if you want to learn further with their best practice and their expertise as well. And yeah, thank you so much for our attendees today, for joining us today. And if you'd love to ask questions, definitely you can type it in, or like you can open your mic before we close. So, and for those who will be watching this recorded session, if you like the topics and the informations, please help us share into social media platforms for additional visibility of our guest speakers as well. They'll be invited into like another talks for different platforms, definitely. And yeah, if you want to be a guest speaker, let us know. You can visit the website www.letustalkit.com. Or anyone you know who would like to speak or just starting to speak, we are welcoming them into this platform because our goal here is just to share knowledge for free. All right. So, see, any questions? No. Okay. All right. So I guess we can move to close the session for today. Again, speakers Tom and Frida, thank you so much for your valuable time and valuable insights and the willingness to join for us today. Thank you again from Let Us Talk It team, And for everyone, see you again next Wednesday, the same time, 12 noon to 1 p.m. for new interesting sessions. All right. Take care as always, and goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.